Have you ever heard the tale of the gunslinger's Rose? They say it began when Cole, a silent bounty hunter, captured the most dangerous outlaw of them all, a woman named Rose. Bound in ropes, she only laughed, teasing him as if the chase was just a game. On the trail, bullets flew, and ambushes rose from the dust. And each time, Rose proved she was no helpless prisoner, her aim was truer than most men's. Around the campfire, her words began to cut deeper than her bullets. She claimed she'd been framed, and Cole, against his better judgment, began to believe her. In the end, he had to choose, deliver her to a crooked marshal, or stand by her side and face the fire. What happened next turned into more than a gunfight. It became a story of two hearts, bound not by ropes, but by love. The desert morning was sharp and quiet, silence broken by the distant cry of a hawk. Cole Harding, a bounty hunter whose name carried more fear than fame, rode with his hat low, eyes narrowed against the sun. He had tracked his quarry 3 days, each hoofprint leading him closer to the woman called Rose. Some said she slit a man's throat in a poker game, others swore she charmed and robbed them blind. To Cole, she was just another bounty. Or so he told himself. He found her in the ruins of an old homestead, roof half collapsed, boards groaning with age. She moved fast, like a Mustang desperate for escape, a red scarf flashing. A knife spun through the air. Cole swatted it aside with his revolver's barrel, and in 2 strides had her on the ground. Her breath was hot with defiance, her smile sharper than any blade. "You took your time," she mocked, wrists already caught in his rope. "Was beginning to think you weren't man enough." Cole said nothing. His hands worked knots with practiced precision. He had tied men twice as strong, killers thrice as cruel. Yet none had laughed like this woman, bound on the dusty floor as if amused. By noon, she was on a horse, wrists lashed tight. They rode into the blaze of desert heat. She shifted, wriggling, talking without pause. "You always this friendly? Or just saving your words for your reflection?" He ignored her, though a corner of his mouth twitched. They crossed a dry wash, the sun hammering like molten iron. Rose kept her grin, humming a tune so out of place it rattled him more than silence. Against his judgment, he listened, to the lilt of her voice, to the way it carried life into a land of dust. When evening fell, Cole built a fire beneath a leaning mesquite. Rose sat across from him, hands tied, knees drawn up as if camping for pleasure. She picked up her humming again, low and teasing. "Quiet," Cole muttered, tossing a branch on the flames. She arched a brow, lips curling. "Didn't say you had to like it." The firelight painted her in bronze and shadow. For the first time, Cole saw something beyond defiance. A flicker of curiosity, a spark he couldn't name. He held her stare longer than he meant before looking away, desert silence pressing heavy between them. Night deepened, stars spilling endless over black horizon. Cole shifted in his blanket, revolver close at hand. Rose lay a few feet away, eyes glinting with the fire's reflection. Though bound, though the law said she was his prisoner, she seemed anything but powerless. As the fire cracked and coyotes cried, Cole realized something dangerous. He was beginning to smile at her words, against every rule he'd lived by. And Rose, tied and defiant, smiled back as if she already knew. The sun rose pale over the canyons, light carving long shadows in the red stone. Cole urged his horse forward, silent as ever, while Rose rode beside him with wrists tied and eyes bright with mischief. She tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle she meant to solve. "You're like those old rocks," she said, nodding to the canyon wall. "Hard, stubborn, and older than dirt." Cole's jaw clenched, but he gave her nothing. Rose laughed, delighted. "I'll take that as a yes." They passed the bones of an abandoned fort, gates hanging crooked, timbers rotted. Wind whistled through empty windows, rattling like ghosts. Rose shivered, then smirked. "Fits you perfectly." Cold, hollow, haunted. This time Cole's eyes flicked toward her. His stare cut sharp, but Rose only grinned wider. By midday the desert heat bore down, cruel and unrelenting. The horses breathed hard, dust curling in the air. Cole tipped his canteen, Rose watched, lips dry, eyes fixed on the water. "You planning to let a lady die of thirst?" "You're no lady," Cole said at last, the first words all day. Rose laughed so loud the horses flinched. "There he is. I thought you'd forgotten how." He hesitated, then passed her the canteen. She drank greedily, wiped her mouth, and smirked. That wasn't so hard. They rode until the sun blared red against the horizon. Camp was made in the shadow of a ridge, fire crackling low. Rose sat close, voice softer now, telling of distant towns, smoke-filled saloons, card tables stacked with winnings. Her words ran like river water, smooth, impossible not to follow. Cole cleaned his revolver, silent. Yet sometimes he looked up. Her tone no longer mocked. Something in her eyes seemed almost true. Hours later, as coyotes howled, Rose leaned back against the sand, her words fading. Cole stayed awake, rifle on his knees, firelight hard on his face. He told himself it was duty that kept him watching. But when she finally drifted into sleep, lips curved in a faint smile, he realized he'd been staring too long. The desert stretched wide and empty, yet for the first time in years, Cole felt less alone. Dawn crept over the ridges, painting the desert in pale gold. Cole saddled the horses without a word, and Rose, still bound, swung herself into the saddle with the ease of someone born to the trail. She hummed a tune as they rode, eyes glinting like she knew a secret the world hadn't yet caught. The morning was calm, too calm. Cole's instincts, honed by years of chasing killers, prickled with warning. The desert wind shifted, carrying dust and the faint echo of hooves. Then the first shot cracked the silence. A bullet screamed past Cole's ear, splintering rock. From behind a ridge, riders thundered down, dust rising in a furious storm. Bandits, half a dozen, maybe more, charging straight for them with guns blazing. Cole yanked the reins, pushing his horse hard. Rose ducked low, ropes chafing her wrists as she struggled to hold on. Bullets struck stone, showering sparks. The canyon became a storm of lead and echo. One outlaw closed fast from behind, his pistol raised. Cole swung around, revolver roaring, dropping the rider into the dust. Another pressed forward, rifle steady. Cole turned too late. And the bandit toppled, a hole blooming in his chest. Cole blinked. Rose sat half-twisted in her saddle, a pistol clutched in her bound hands. Smoke curled from the barrel. Somehow, in the chaos, she had grabbed the gun from a fallen rider. "You're welcome," she shouted, eyes blazing. For a heartbeat, Cole could only stare. Then another rider came barreling in, and together, as if it had always been so, they fired in unison. The canyon rang with thunder, the horses screamed, and the smell of gunpowder burned the air. By the time the last bandit fled, the ground was littered with bodies and dust still hung thick. Cole dismounted, breathing hard, eyes fixed on the woman before him. Her wrists were raw, her hair loose around her face, but she stood tall, pistol firm in her grip. "That makes us even," she said with a crooked smile. Cole stepped forward, silent, and cut her bonds for the first time since he'd caught her. Her laughter rang out, not mocking now but triumphant, fierce as the desert wind. They built camp that evening among the rocks, the fire flickering against stone walls still pitted with bullet marks. Rose sat close, cleaning the pistol she had claimed. Cole kept his silence, but something had shifted. For the first time, he looked at her not just as a bounty, not just as trouble, but as someone who had stood between him and death. The desert night settled heavy and dark, and in the glow of the flames, Rose's laughter softened into something almost gentle. Cole did not laugh with her, but the thought of it no longer felt impossible. Night draped itself across the desert like a heavy cloak, stars spilling endlessly above. The fire between them snapped and hissed, throwing sparks into the cool air. Cole sat with his rifle across his knees, eyes fixed on the flames. Rose, her wrists now free, leaned back against a stone, her face half in shadow, half in flickering light. For a long while, she said nothing. Then, her voice cut through the crackle of the fire. "You think I'm guilty," she murmured, her tone stripped of mockery. Cole didn't answer. His silence was an iron wall. Rose tilted her head, studying him, her eyes sharper now, serious in a way he hadn't seen before. I didn't kill that man. I didn't rob that bank. I was set up. Cole's jaw tightened. He wanted to shut her out, to let her words fall into the sand and die there. But something in her voice, an edge of pain, of truth, hooked into him. She leaned forward, the firelight catching the red of her scarf, the tired curve of her mouth. The marshal. The one waiting for me in town. He made me his scapegoat. Too many eyes on him, too many questions. I was convenient. Cole stared into the flames, letting her confession roll over him like the desert wind. He had heard every excuse before. Men and women swore they were innocent with the hangman's noose around their neck. But her eyes held no trick, no glitter of manipulation. Just raw, open defiance against something larger than herself. You don't have to believe me, she whispered, her voice breaking just slightly. But you'll see. When we ride into that town, you'll see. For the first time, Cole looked at her fully, no mask between them. In her gaze, he found no fear, only the weight of someone who had been betrayed. His chest tightened, though he shoved the feeling down as if it were poison. You lie well, he muttered at last, though his voice lacked the bite it once carried. Rose's smile was brief and bitter. Better than you think. But not tonight. She turned away, hugging her knees, her face once again hidden in shifting firelight. Cole sat awake long after her breathing slowed into sleep. He told himself it was habit, that years of hunting had taught him to never trust the dark. But in truth, it was her words that haunted him, circling like coyotes just beyond the fire's reach. Her laugh had once grated against his bones. Now, her silence weighed heavier than gunmetal. He clenched his fists, knowing that each mile brought them closer to a truth he was no longer certain he wanted to face. And as the stars wheeled overhead, Cole realized something he hadn't admitted in years: his world of certainty, of black and white law and order, was beginning to crack. And the cracks all led back to her. By late afternoon, the desert gave way to signs of life. A weathered windmill turned lazily in the dry air, and soon the rooftops of a frontier town broke the horizon. Narrow streets lined with clapboard buildings leaned under the sun. A church bell tolled, its sound more weary than devout. Cole guided his horse through the main street, Rose tied once more for appearance's sake. Faces turned, shopkeepers pausing mid-sale, mothers pulling children close, drifters narrowing their eyes. To them, Cole was the law's long arm, Rose, another outlaw bound for justice. You like the attention? She asked quietly, smirk faint. All these eyes thinking you're some hero. He didn't answer, but his grip on the reins tightened. At the far end of town stood the marshal's office, its sign bold though the wood was cracked. Two deputies lounged outside, rifles at hand. They straightened at the sight of Cole, nodding with rehearsed respect. Inside, Marshal Whitaker waited. His mustache was neat, his coat too fine for a dusty lawman. He rose with a smile that spread wide but never touched his eyes. Cole Harding, Whitaker said smoothly. Always a pleasure to see a man who gets the job done. Cole pushed Rose forward. She didn't flinch. Her gaze locked on him like a blade. You're making a mistake, she spat. He's the one you should be dragging in, not me. Whitaker's smile held, but his eyes darkened. Still running that story? You always had a talent for lies. Cole's jaw tightened. He'd seen plenty of liars. But in the marshal's eyes flickered something else, greed, calculation, that twisted in his gut. Rose leaned close, whispering hot against his ear. He's the one. Look at him. Quiet, Cole muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. The deputies shifted, hands brushing holsters. The air grew tense, heavy as a brewing storm. Whitaker stepped forward, hand outstretched. I'll take her from here. For a moment, Cole stood frozen. His bounty, his duty, balanced against the memory of Rose firing into chaos, saving his life. Against her voice by the fire, raw and trembling. Against the glimmer of truth he dreaded. Her eyes burned, fierce and pleading. "Don't do this. Not to me. Not for him." Cole's hand drifted near his revolver. The marshal's gaze followed, his smile fading into a thin, dangerous line. Silence pressed close, broken only by the wall clock's tick. Every soul inside felt the edge of something sharp and final. Cole realized, with startling clarity, he stood on the border of two lives, the one bound to law, and the one waiting if he chose her. And for the first time in years, he didn't know which way his hand would move. The marshal's office seemed to shrink, its walls closing in as the silence stretched. The deputies shifted uneasily, fingers twitching near their guns. Cole stood still, but inside, something cracked. Whitaker's smile returned, oily and false. "Hand her over, Harding. You'll get your pay, and more besides. No sense dragging this out." Rose's breath came fast, though her voice was steady. "He's buying you, Cole. Just like he buys everyone else." Cole's eyes flicked to the marshal. He saw it then, not the calm face of justice, but the gleam of a man who thrived on power, who would sell his soul and hang an innocent woman without blinking. His hand moved. Not toward Rose, but toward his revolver. Whitaker's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Harding." The clock ticked once. Twice. Then steel cleared leather. The first shot shattered the oil lamp on the wall. Flames leapt instantly, smoke curling into the rafters. The deputies dove for cover, rifles raised. Rose seized the moment, lunging for a pistol knocked loose in the chaos. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the small room. Cole fired again, dropping a deputy who had barely aimed. Rose crouched low, the rope burned still raw on her wrists, and shot another before he could reload. Whitaker cursed, his coat flaring as he pulled his weapon. "You'll regret this, Harding." A blast of dynamite from somewhere outside rocked the building. The front wall groaned, then split apart, boards crashing inward. Dust and smoke swallowed everything, fire licking hungrily at the edges of the room. Cole and Rose fought side by side, back to back, their gunfire blending into one rhythm. Sparks rained down, wood splintered, men screamed. The marshal shouted for reinforcements, his voice lost in the chaos. Another explosion roared, tearing open the far wall. Heat rolled through the room, searing the air. Cole grabbed Rose's arm, pulling her toward the breach. Together they stumbled through smoke, bullets sparking against stone around them. Outside, the town was already unraveling. Flames licked at rooftops, shadows darted through alleys, and the sound of gunfire rolled like thunder. Cole and Rose pressed into the chaos, moving as one. Neither spoke. There was no time for words. By the time they reached the edge of the street, both were coated in dust and sweat, their lungs burning from smoke. They paused only long enough to catch sight of Whitaker, silhouetted in the burning doorway, gun still in hand, his face twisted with rage. The marshal's voice carried even through the roar of fire. "You're finished, Harding. Both of you." Cole raised his revolver, but the flames and smoke swallowed the man whole. And then, just like that, they were outside, alive, the town around them collapsing into chaos. Cole looked at Rose, and for the first time, she didn't smile. Her eyes held something heavier, gratitude, yes, but also the beginning of something neither of them could yet name. Night fell heavy on the town, broken by fire. Flames leapt from rooftops, shadows dancing like specters across the streets. Smoke choked the air, thick with powder and fear. Cole and Rose mounted fast. Shouts rose behind them, gunfire cracking through alleys as Whitaker's men swarmed. "Ride!" Cole barked, spurring ahead. Rose followed close, pistol flashing. A deputy lunged, her shot split the night, and he dropped in the dust. They tore through the square. Wagons toppled, horses screamed, mothers dragged children into cellars. Riders stormed after, guns blazing. Cole veered into a side street. Bullets shattered windows, ripped through porches. Rose twisted in her saddle, firing back with grim resolve. The desert opened before them, but the chase pressed close, 10, maybe more, thundered behind like wolves. A narrow bridge loomed over a dry riverbed. Hooves clattered, wood groaned. At its midpoint, fresh gunfire erupted, sparks spitting from the railings. The pursuers were on them, close enough for Cole to see their eyes. He and Rose wheeled to fight. The bridge became a battlefield suspended over void. Shots cracked, boards splintered, nails screamed loose. Rose dropped 2 riders, hair wild. Cole's revolver spat measured flame. Then bullets tore into the supports. The bridge shuddered, timbers cracking like thunder. "Go!" Cole shouted, urging her on. They raced for solid ground as the bridge collapsed behind them, swallowing men and horses into the abyss. Dust rose like a wave, drowning gunfire in silence. On the far bank, they halted, chests heaving, faces streaked with soot. The burning town flickered on the horizon, a hell left behind. For a long moment they only stared, alive by nothing but luck and defiance. Rose broke the silence, voice ragged but steady. "If this is justice, I think I prefer outlawry." Cole almost smiled. Almost. The desert was quiet again, as if the night's violence had been swallowed whole by the endless sands. Smoke from the burning town rose faintly in the distance, a dark column fading into the stars. Cole and Rose rode hard until the chaos lay far behind, the silence of the land pressing close around them. At last, when the first pale streaks of dawn cut across the horizon, they slowed. The horses snorted and pawed the ground, muscles slick with sweat. Cole dismounted first, scanning the ridges with a hunter's instinct. Nothing but the whisper of wind through stone. Rose slid from her saddle, her hair tangled, her face streaked with soot. She looked at him, her eyes no longer mocking but steady, serious in a way that unsettled him more than any gunfight. "You saved me back there," she said. "Or maybe I saved you. Hard to tell." Cole reached for the knife at his belt. He held her gaze as he cut through the ropes that still dangled from her wrists. The cords fell into the dust. "You're free," he said simply. She flexed her raw hands, wincing, then smiled, a smile unlike any he had seen from her before. No arrogance, no tease, just something quiet, almost tender. "Free," she echoed. "Not if you're still planning to ride off without me." Cole frowned. "You're wanted. Outlaw. Everything in me says I should walk away. And yet here you stand." Her voice was soft but unyielding. "Tell me that fire we just walked through didn't burn the chains off you, too." The silence stretched. Cole looked past her to the horizon, where the sun was rising, spilling gold over the dunes. He had lived his life by iron rules, by bounty slips and signatures, by the weight of coin. But none of that had stopped him from standing against the marshal. None of it had stopped him from choosing her. His hand lifted, slow but certain. She extended hers, and when their palms met, it was as if the desert itself exhaled. Rose's smile widened. "That's more like it." They mounted again, this time side by side, no ropes between them. The desert wind picked up, carrying their dust across the pale morning. Behind them, the town smoldered, its secrets buried in ash. Ahead lay nothing certain, no law, no safety, only the long trail and whatever they could carve from it together. Cole glanced once at her, and she at him. There were no words, none needed. The bounty hunter and the bandit had stepped across a line that could never be undone. As the sun broke free of the horizon, they rode on, two silhouettes swallowed by light, vanishing into the desert not as captor and prisoner, but as partners, as lovers, as something new.